The devil kept his end. The life and death of Luther Vance Holloway. Cedar Bluff in the 1920s was a working town built on routine and restraint. The railroad cut through it like a rule that could not be broken, and the river beyond it carried away whatever the town could not use. Men learned early what was expected of them, and just as early what was not possible. Luther Vance Holloway was born there in the spring of 1904. In a narrow two-room house set close enough to the tracks that conversation stopped whenever a train passed. His mother called him Vance. His father spoke little and expected less. By the time Vance was 12, he understood that effort alone did not decide a man's future. Some people were meant to stay where they were put. He paid attention. He noticed how certain men could walk into a room and take control without raising their voices. He noticed how confidence, even when borrowed, bent people's expectations. He practiced speaking when no one was listening, shaping his voice, learning how to pause, how to let silence do work for him. Words became his trade long before he had anything to sell. By his late teens, he had found ways to avoid the hardest labor. He announced boxing matches, introduced traveling shows, sold bottled remedies that promised energy, relief, or luck. He never outright lied. He simply allowed hope to do the heavy lifting. It kept him fed and clean while others wore themselves down. Still, Cedar Bluff was a narrow place to dream. In 1926, after a handshake deal collapsed and his last savings disappeared, in a single evening, Vance found himself alone by the river. Fog lay low over the water, the moon cutting through it thin and sharp. For the first time in years, he had no plan. Without thinking, he spoke. "I'd trade tomorrow for today if it meant never being hungry again." The answer came quietly. A man stood beside him, well-dressed, unhurried, shoes spotless despite the damp ground. His expression was calm in a way that felt practiced. He did not ask questions. He did not introduce himself. They spoke as equals, which surprised Vance more than anything else. The offer was precise: recognition, wealth, influence, and time. More time than Vance could imagine using. His name would travel farther than Cedar Bluff ever could. His life would stretch long and uninterrupted. The cost was agreement. No threats, no spectacle. Just a signature, freely given. The paper was already folded. The pen already inked. Vance Holloway signed. He left Cedar Bluff within a year. By 1932, he was known as L.V. Holloway, a radio personality whose voice carried authority without strain. People trusted him instinctively. He spoke of Appalachian life with warmth and restraint, shaping hardship into stories that felt meaningful without being uncomfortable. His audience grew steadily. Sponsors followed. Money arrived and stayed. By the late 1930s, his name appeared in newspapers across multiple states. He hosted popular programs, produced recordings, and published collections of stories and music. He learned how to move through rooms filled with powerful people, how to be memorable without being threatening. Time treated him gently. His face changed slowly. His posture stayed straight. Illness passed him by. While others aged abruptly, Holloway seemed to progress by careful degrees, as if years had to ask permission before settling on him. During the war, he entertained troops. Afterward, he adapted to television without effort. New mediums arrived, and he stepped into them easily, always current, never desperate. Careers rose and burned out around him. He remained. Wealth accumulated quietly. Properties across several states. Investments that never failed. He never gambled and never lost. Accidents missed him by inches. Doctors found nothing wrong. By the 1960s, he was a fixture. By the 1970s, he was a legend. That was when people began to ask questions. At first, it was jokes. How old was Holloway, really? Then curiosity. then unease. His past felt oddly smooth, missing the rough edges most lives carried. Too many people remembered him from too many decades, always appearing roughly the same. He deflected with charm. Let time blur the details. Time obliged. He outlived his wives, each marriage ending quietly, worn thin by years rather than broken by scandal. He attended funerals for friends who once seemed permanent. He watched his audience age out, replaced by newer voices, louder styles, shorter attention spans. By the 1990s, his fame had dulled to a historical footnote. His money remained untouched. His days grew quieter. Eventually, he returned to Southwest Virginia and entered a nursing home near Tazewell, bringing one suitcase and enough documentation to ensure comfort without questions. The staff knew him as polite, reserved, and impeccably dressed. He thanked nurses by name. He spoke kindly, but briefly. No visitors came. Years passed. Residents changed. Seasons turned. Luther Vance Holloway remained. His body finally began to fail him in small, ordinary ways. His hands trembled. His hearing softened. His sleep grew thin and restless. For the first time in his long life, time began to press instead of stretch. On his final night, the halls were quiet. A winter wind leaned against the windows. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the lights flickered once, sharp, deliberate. A smell like old smoke drifted through the east wing. Luther Vance Holloway sat upright in bed, suddenly frail, suddenly every bit of his age, his eyes fixed on someone standing just beyond the reach of the light. "I thought I had more time," he said. His voice broke. "No, please," he whispered. "I did everything. I kept my end. Don't take it yet. Just a little more. One more year. One more day." His hands shook as he reached out, fingers clawing at empty air. "I'm not ready," he said. "I'm not finished." There was no answer. Later that morning, the news reported, legendary broadcaster and cultural icon Luther Vance Holloway passed away peacefully at the age of 118. Holloway, whose career spanned nearly a century and helped shape American radio and television, died at a nursing facility in Tazewell, Virginia. There was no mention of Cedar Bluff, no mention of the river, no mention of any agreement made long ago. Acting in the moment can change a life. It can break patterns, open doors, and carry a person farther than caution ever could. But when everything is traded for the present, the future becomes something to endure rather than enjoy. Fame thins. Fortune loses weight. And a long life without peace stretches longer than any punishment. The bargain was honored. It always is.